The Mate 80 Pro is a pretty big deal for the company as it marks the first Mate series phone to be released globally in quite some time. Huawei does release other Mate series devices outside of China, but these are usually much higher end and premium foldable models. The Mate 80 Pro is seen as a flagship phone. It boasts some impressive technology and now South Africans can finally pick it up. You can get the phone in both gold and black, with the gold variant being the one featured in this review. Huawei also makes the Mate 80 Pro in a Pro Max variant, but that model didn't make its global debut. Hopefully this Mate 80 Pro will be the start of things to come, and we'll someday see the Pro Max come around too. But the Huawei Mate 80 Pro is a gorgeous phone on its own. There's a lot going on here that I enjoy, and perhaps I enjoy a bit more than the Pura 80 range. For example, the 6.75-inch display is Huawei's new X-True OLED, and it features a clean, flat panel, which I just love so much more than the curved display on the Pura. I just prefer flat edges personally. It has an adaptive refresh rate of up to 120Hz and looks and feels great in motion. It packs 460 ppi, making everything look crisp, and the OLED panel, of course, brings gorgeous colors to life on the panel itself. It has a resolution of 1280 by 2832. The display can also reach a peak brightness of 3000 nits, and from the moment I picked this phone up, I could see the difference. At times, I even had to turn down the display's brightness because it was too bright, but it does the job. It means it can tackle outdoor environments and is clearly visible in every condition. Speaking of the display, it includes second generation Kunlun glass, which promises more drop, crack, and scratch resistance. Huawei has also added a 3D time-of-flight sensors to the front display, which enhances the facial unlock security on the Mate 80 Pro. So instead, it can now be used for encrypted transactions and more secure processes rather than just unlocking the device itself. But the phone also looks the part. The Huawei Mate 80 Pro in gold features a clean and sleek exterior. The sides are glossy aluminium with a reflective finish, and the back features a brushed finish. It is plastic though, but it looks like glass. The dual ring design on the back includes the large camera bump, and underneath it there's another ring which really doesn't do anything at all, it's just there for show. There is a slight magnetic pull on the entire back of the phone, but the ring doesn't represent anything like MagSafe, which locks the charger onto the phone, which usually allows you to use wireless charging with a magnetic finish, and you can also mount the phone onto magnetic connections. You can't do that with the Mate 80. It kind of feels like a missed opportunity to make something great out of a cool design finish, to be honest. I mean, the ring is here, Huawei should have just made it magnetic in the first place. The phone then includes a dual SIM slot with no eSIM support. I must say this was likely the biggest disappointment for me on the Mate 80 Pro. No eSIM on a high-end phone like this is quite a deal breaker. Inside the phone you'll find the new Kirin 9030 Pro chip, which is slightly better than the chips found on the Pura 80 series. However, I won't say that these Kirin chips are anything groundbreaking in terms of mobile performance, because they still feel a bit dated compared to Snapdragon chips and of course Apple's A chips on the market. But I do think that Huawei has done a great job optimizing its EMUI system to make use of these so-called underpowered chips. So I never felt like general daily use was affected by the lesser chip, and if anything, this Kirin 9030 Pro does an excellent job powering this phone. I think it is an adequate chip for an adequate operating system. Everything I did was incredibly snappy and fluid. Navigating around the phone was a breeze, and even the heavier tasks like photo editing didn't ever really give any issues. The only time I noticed some hiccups was during intense gaming, as the built-in Mali 935 GPU does struggle to run modern high-end games like Destiny Rising at maxed out settings, so you might need to reduce some graphics settings here to get those frame rates that you need. I did run some benchmarks in case you wanted some numbers and compared them to the recent Pura series and the iPhone 70 Pro Max. You'll also find 16GB of RAM inside the Huawei Mate 80 Pro and 512GB of storage. Battery life on the Mate 80 Pro was one of the best parts of the phone for me. This thing can last days on end. Sometimes I would get 2 full days of use before charging. The 5700 mAh battery is really impressive and makes the phone quite worry-free when it comes to battery life during the day. Of course, the Huawei Mate 80 Pro runs on Huawei's EMUI 15 system, so sadly there's no Harmony OS here to enjoy. It means that if you want Google services, you'll need to install Micro G and the Aurora store. But honestly, setting up Google services on a Huawei phone is so quick and easy now that I often forget that the phone lacks the feature out of the box. I got it up and running in a few minutes and did a phone clone from my Pura 80 Ultra to the Mate 80 Pro. I must say Huawei's phone clone feature is quite impressive. It took around 35 minutes to move over 200 GB of data from the Ultra to the Mate 80 Pro, and with it went app settings, themes and more. It is quite seamless. EMUI 15 is okay, it does the job, and you can basically do everything you would usually do on any phone. I did replace the built-in browser because why would you have an ad pop up when I open my Internet Explorer? But generally this operating system does everything that you need. However, I do feel like Huawei needs some sort of breakthrough in software soon because EMUI is just feeling a bit safe right now. AI features are lacking in comparison to the rest of the market except for Apple, who has non-existent AI, and the general experience just comes across a bit basic. There aren't any really cool software features here, nothing that really stands out. It does everything we have done on phones for over 20 years now, and that's probably the issue. It doesn't really push any boundaries, but it just gets the job done. It does what phones do, and that's basically it. Then there's the camera system. The Huawei Mate 80 Pro borrows much of the Pura 80 when it comes to the included sensors. The main camera is a 50 megapixel with a variable aperture of f1.4 to f4.0. There's a 40 megapixel ultra wide lens and a 48 megapixel telephoto lens with 4x optical zoom. The front camera is then 30 megapixels. Huawei has included another camera on the Mate 80 Pro, which isn't technically a camera that you'll shoot with, but more a support lens for color. It is called the Huawei True to Color camera, also previously known as the Ultra Chroma camera. It helps support all the other lenses by acting as just a color intake lens to produce true color accuracy in all your photos. So what you see with your eyes is what the camera will capture. Nothing is overly processed and oversaturated. It also captures all the color detail, so nothing looks washed out. Of course, the variable aperture on the main camera instantly made me happy. It just means there's actual control over the light intake. It can adapt to different scenes and it just looks fantastic in all scenarios. The 48 megapixel telephoto lens is also a dream to use. It is likely my favorite lens as the versatility between 5cm macro shots and the 4x optical zoom makes it so adaptable to any environment. Macro shots also support up to 5cm in length, so you can really get in close to your subject to produce some incredible shots. Video content is also great. While video recording lacks any real pro modes such as log filming and HDR video is limited to 30 frames per second, it does support 4K 60fps as standard. It was much the same here as the Pura 80 Pro to be honest, but that isn't really just a bad thing. I do wish Huawei would step up the video on their phones now by enabling some sort of pro video shooting. I know Harmony OS does this on the Pura 80 Ultra, so right now it seems like more of a software limitation rather than a hardware one. Again, this all boils back down to the EMUI's rather outdated platform. But the Huawei Mate 80 Pro isn't shy when it comes to its premium experience. You're getting a very capable device here that has a notable boost in performance compared to the Pura 80 Pro. Gaming was noticeably better on this phone. The display is also my favorite as the OLED panel is gorgeous to use. Everything you do looks incredible, and honestly it just makes the phone the complete package for me. In the end, I did hope for more Pro here, which is why the Mate 80 Pro is called Pro, but it really for me didn't deliver the Pro aspect. The lack of eSIM support and the missing Pro video modes really just make this phone look not so much Pro, but that really isn't a bad thing. You're still getting a capable and premium product that ticks most of the boxes that you'll look for in a high-end phone, and I think people will still love this product. So those are my thoughts on the Huawei Mate 80 Pro. Are you looking to pick it up or have any questions? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll leave all the links in the description below where you can pick up the phone yourself and learn more. While you're here, please do consider subscribing for future content like this, and until next time, farewell.